In Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefanía Bravo, and this is From the South. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza is at the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Michelle Bachelet and he both have agreed on working on new cooperation agreement. Arreaza and Bachelet were set to discuss the Venezuela migration flow in Latin America. The new High Commissioner had previously said she was concerned about the situation that has provoked tensions in the region.
Expert Alfred Desayas says the efficient continuation of Venezuela's model guarantees respect for human rights, despite the economic blockades and media campaigns against it. Desayas says, and I quote, "I witnessed elimination of illiteracy, free education from elementary school to college, extreme poverty reduction programs, free housing for the most vulnerable sectors or homeless people, gradual elimination of privileges and discrimination, and free quality health care for everyone." Desayas confirms a multi-form, integral aggression against Venezuela's economy caused by the so-called sanctions, which are not so, because the United States is not in the moral position to sanction anyone. These are repressive, unilateral measures, out of the framework of international public law, meant to force a change of regime.
Our correspondent, Eduardo Marín, is in Geneva and brings us more.
Saludos desde Ginebra, desde la sede de
The 39th session of the UN Human Rights Council has taken place with Michelle Bachelet as the head of the High Commission for Human Rights. In the session, Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza defended his country. During his speech, he presented a report from an expert that visited Venezuela in 2017 and concluded in his study that the country is facing an economic crisis, not a humanitarian one. The report also explained that the crisis is provoked by the blockade imposed by the United States and the European Union. Arreaza also met with Michelle Bachelet and said he hopes the relations between Venezuela and the UN High Commission for Human Rights improve. Jorge Arreaza is expected to intervene in the second day of sessions. He is also expected to meet with representatives of the African Union and the ALBA Group.
Thank you for your report. And 25-year-old Lady Correa Valle has been found dead in Colombia after going missing on Wednesday. She was the secretary for her village community action board. Social organizations have called for the protection of social leaders so that the peace process can be fully implemented. At least 160 activists have been killed this year alone. And Colombia's High Commissioner for Peace has said an operation is underway to release 6 National Liberation Army hostages. In an interview, the High Commissioner Miguel Ceballos said that he knows, quote, "the liberation is taking place with the invaluable support of the Catholic Church and the Ombudsman Office." According to the government, the ELN has at least 17 people captive. President Duque says it will only renew peace talks with the armed group once all hostages are freed. And members of the ELN have insisted they want to find a political solution to the conflict. The armed group says it is committed to continuing with the peace talks started by the previous government. They also added that the military presence is the main obstacle for the release of those captives. And former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva lawyers will ask to the Supreme Court for an extension to name a substitute presidential candidate. Lula's legal team says the UN has reaffirmed his political rights should be respected. They want to present this recommendation in court.
At the moment, we are leaving the Federal Police Headquarters, and we have received on our phones the UN General Committee's new decision, reaffirming Lula's candidacy must be ensured by all Brazilian authorities, both judicial, legislative, and executive.
And hundreds of supporters of former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva are camping outside the prison in Curitiba, where he is being held. They say they will remain there until the leader is released. The former president has communicated with them via messages and letters. Demonstrators say he often asks them for them to sing.
Our goal with this vigil is to show solidarity with Lula, to send him our positive energies of solidarity so that he remains strong.
Lula is the only one I can trust because I know he does good things for the poor black people who work.
And Brazilian candidate Jair Bolsonaro needs further surgery after he was stabbed at a campaign rally September 6th. The Einstein Hospital in Sao Paulo said that doctors need to repair a hole in his intestine. Bolsonaro was attacked at a political rally and most likely won't be able to resume campaigning before the elections in October. Yet, his campaign manager hopes the incident will bring sympathy votes. Workers have started an open-ended strike in Costa Rica to protest a fiscal reform. Union representatives say the measure will only affect workers. They insist this will not fix the country's economic crisis. Some hospitals and schools have closed down, although government officials say they will guarantee the functioning of public services.
The open-ended strike has started all across the country. Demonstrations are planned in different regions. Public sector workers have gathered outside the Costa Rican Institute for Electricity to protest the austerity measures, and others are also expected to gather in the main squares in different municipalities. Some hospitals have already closed, although emergency services are still working. Schools have closed down, and the streets look quite empty. The government says it will guarantee the functioning public services. Worker unions announced they will continue striking to reject the government's fiscal reform.
And thousands took to the streets in Chile to remember the 45th anniversary of the military coup against the late President Salvador Allende. Marchers called for truth and justice for the over 40,000 victims of the dictatorship.
Their goal is clear: eradicating any leftover legacy of the dictatorship. This popular Chilean movement continues to be the main threat to the Chilean oligarchy.
This is a march in resistance of the neoliberal onset that President Sebastián Piñera has unleashed on the population, in particular the impunity of those who are being protected by the government.
In less than 24 hours, the Supreme Court released on parole 7 criminals condemned for crimes against humanity.
By freeing such heinous criminals, what the government is doing is creating impunity, something that is expressly prohibited by the law.
The government has long ignored the rights of indigenous communities.
The pseudo-democracy we have lived in for 28 years has meant a continuation of the dictatorship for the Mapuche people. Our lands continue to be militarized, overtaken by specially trained troops that attack us relentlessly.
Together, marchers moved to the city's cemetery, once again facing a crackdown by police along the way. In front of the memorial for the victims of the dictatorship, the LGBTQ community made their presence known.
Pinochet and his military thugs and the state of emergency of 1973, the new majority, along with the right wing, have only deepened the dictatorship's economic system. Which bodies are the most important on September 11? Whose memories? Where have we commemorate the hate crimes against all identities?
Relatives of the so-called forgotten dead stand in front of a mural where thousands of names are etched to ensure that they're always remembered.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Welcome back. A memorial has been held in Argentina to pay tribute to the victims of backstreet abortions. This comes 1 month after the Senate rejected the bill on its legalization. The group of women remember 3 women who have died during this month. They also remember 19-year-old Ana Maria Acevedo, who was denied an abortion despite being raped. They say women like Ana Maria are the real victims of last month's vote. And Guatemala is currently discussing a bill that proposes jail sentences for women who suffer miscarriages. This has sparked controversy. Across Latin America, the debate on the decriminalization of abortion continues.
They say they are against legalizing abortion, standing in defense of the lives of mothers and the unborn fetus. In Latin America, victims of unsafe abortions account for 24% of all deaths related to pregnancy and childbirth. Around 47,000 women die every year across the world due to backstreet abortions. The debate has taken to the streets. Anti-abortion groups are influenced by religion and conservative sectors. Pro-choice groups fight so that women's reproductive rights are respected. Honduras, El Salvador, and Nicaragua have completely banned abortion. Cuba and Uruguay, along with Mexico City, have the most progressive laws in the region. In other countries in Latin America, abortion is only allowed under certain circumstances. This disparity is reflected in the testimonies of women who have undergone abortions.
I did it in my house, calmly, with my mother and a friend. It was 6 or 7 hours of watching movies and me going to the bathroom. Movies and going to the bathroom.
In my case, the abortions have not been experiences that have caused me any guilt or emotional pain. On the contrary, they have been a relief. I have been sure of what I was doing. I'm thankful that I was able to do it safely.
I had an abortion 12 years ago. I was still underage. The abortion was not legal. It is a very different experience because I was on the verge of death.
Y es una experiencia muy diferente.
I spent 10 years and 7 months in prison. I think the most difficult moment a person can live through is being inside prison, especially when you are paying for a crime you haven't committed, when you know you are innocent.
Women's rights groups insist that outlawing abortion simply pushes women into taking unnecessary risks. They say that the legalization of abortion is a matter of public health and of social justice.
This will continue to happen. Abortion have happened for decades and will continue to exist. What must be done is the same as what happened here in Uruguay. Here it was legalized. It was made safe, done in a safe environment.
Bolivia's largest multi-megawatt solar park is now operating. It was inaugurated by President Evo Morales over the weekend. The solar power plant in Uyuni has the capacity to generate 60 megawatts. That's enough to supply half of the energy needs of the people living in the region. The government invested around $62 million in the project.
And now, at maximum capacity, we have 1,500 megawatts of domestic demand, but we are generating 2,100 megawatts. We have an excess of energy. A moment ago, our energy minister was saying that we're getting prepared to export, and we're installing the power supply from Bolivia to Argentina. Hopefully, we will have time so that next year we can be exporting 100 megawatts to Argentina.
And a member of Mauricio Macri's government may be involved in an embezzlement scandal in Argentina. The current head of the cabinet, Marcos Peña, is being named in an investigation by Argentine media. He's accused of using public funds to finance Macri's 2015 campaign. The report combed through at least 4,000 emails as part of their investigation. And hundreds have protested in St. Lucia against what they say are the government's failed policies. Opposition leader Philippe Pierre organized the march to protest what he calls poor governance in the country. The government has been facing industrial action by custom officers. There have also been notices of strike action issued by the St. Lucia Electricity Services and workers of St. Jude Hospital.
Right now we are being overwhelmed in St. Lucia by so many issues related to the development of the country, and the government and the direction that they're going seems to be very much driven by sort of a capitalistic enterprise, which is driven about privatization of the healthcare sector, privatization of the printry, privatization of a number of different institutions. And so we're seeing a lot of the government services being closed off, like the radio station.
And Caribbean countries are on alert as Hurricane Isaac approaches the area. The National Hurricane Center says Isaac is a small Category 1 hurricane that appears to be weakening, but it will be at hurricane strength when it reaches the Lesser Antilles before crossing the eastern Caribbean Sea. Meanwhile, Florence has been upgraded to a Category 4 hurricane over the Atlantic. It could make landfall along the east coast of the United States on Thursday. Warnings have already gone out, but life-threatening storm surges beginning on Tuesday. Dominicans are learning about their cultural heritage with the help of the Long Night in the museum's event. This year's edition was inspired by youth and folklore.
The Long Night in the Museum's event is promoting arts and culture once again in the country.
All the museums are open until midnight. We have different activities in every floor, with music, living statues, and theaters. This is a cultural night.
People can also take guided tours to the historical places and enjoy concerts, workshops, dance presentations, and exhibitions.
We have used the Long Night at the museum's event to encourage people to visit their museums. Most of the times, our visitors are students and tourists, but this event brings different audiences to the museums.
This year's edition was inspired in the youth and the World Day of Folklore.
We learned about traditional instruments and their importance in Dominican culture. People from other countries can also value the story of our country.
The event was launched 10 years ago, but now people can enjoy it 4 times a year. This is an invitation to discover the beauty of the Dominican Republic and its rich heritage.
We'll be back very soon. Stay right here.
The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Move. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. The U.S. administration has closed down the Palestinian mission in Washington. The Palestine Liberation Organization says this move is part of a dangerous escalation of tensions. U.S. President Donald Trump also cut funding to the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Trump's goal may be forcing Palestinian leadership to negotiate a plan for Middle East peace that he calls the ultimate deal.
The U.S. administration decision to protect Israel from war crimes and crimes against humanity that Israel is committing in the occupied Palestinian territories, and to dismantle the system of international law and the mechanisms of international law.
The United States has threatened to arrest and sanction International Criminal Court judges if they move to charge any American who served in Afghanistan with war crimes. National Security Advisor John Bolton made the announcement, referring to the ICC investigation into such alleged war crimes. The probe is due to begin soon.
20% of all the conservatives at Yale Law School. We will ban its judges and prosecutors from entering the United States. We will sanction their funds in the U.S. financial system, and we will prosecute them in the U.S. criminal system. We will do the same for any company or state that assists an ICC investigation of Americans.
And Cape Town is hosting the first artificial intelligence conference in Africa. Cutting-edge technology to gather data, software for facial reconciliation, and security advices are the conference's main innovations. Attendees will also debate on the ethics of artificial intelligence and the risk of automatization. And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.